Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Today I want to quickly cover a topic which is I think very important for any OCD sufferer and no matter what everything you're going through, which is accepting that you are someone who has OCD. So not only do you have to accept your fears regarding your main theme, but also a lot of the times many people also have to accept the fact that they have OCD itself. They need acceptance of just that notion too because they're spending a lot of time and a lot of mental energy into internally complaining about the fact that why they have OCD. Why do I have OCD? Why did I have to have OCD? Why did I have to suffer from this? Other people are pretty okay and normal. Why am I like in this position where I have to suffer with a disorder and I have to deal with this? This is so unfair. It would be only unfair if there was someone who was actually distributing genetics, like handing them out in a way to different people. And he was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to give this person these genetics and that genetics. Even if you're someone who believes in God, like I do as well, I still don't think like it was like God picking and choosing. Okay, I'm going to give this person these genetics just to like kind of like mess with them. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just like how life turned out either way. So there's no like fairness or unfairness over here because like it's to me it's literally the same as someone saying that them being born into poverty, for example, is unfair. But it's not unfair in the sense of like no one said, oh, this unborn baby deserves to be poor, so we're going to like make them be born in a poor household or like in a poor economic bracket. Like, what makes no sense. So you have to have you have to have acceptance of the fact that you have OCD, because if you don't have acceptance that you have OCD, what will happen? You're always going to self down yourself. You're always going to feel like you're less capable. You're always going to have this level of underconfidence. You're always going to feel insecure. You're also It's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy as well, because naturally when you're thinking that you're this handicapped person who has OCD, therefore you're not going to ever try to do something more with your life. You're always going to stay to this like mid-tier level of like, I can't go above this because I have OCD and therefore I cannot achieve XYZ things. And even when you're then trying to achieve those things in your mind, you're thinking, oh, I have OCD will affect me. OCD will affect my ability and my capabilities to actually work on this thing. So therefore, oh, I'm feeling too anxious about it. No, I think I need to exit. So a lot of people who are then trying big things in their life, and by big things, I don't mean like, I don't know, starting like a multi-million dollar business or something like that. I'm just talking about like for someone, even getting a lawyer's degree, for example, can be a huge deal, right? So even doing something like that, they would exit just midway because they'd be like, no, this is too much for me. I have OCD. My career, everything is going to be affected by OCD, so I don't want to do it. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you're thinking of it in that way of like, oh, other people are better off because they don't have OCD, but I do, you're doing yourself a disservice, and not accepting that you're doing yourself a disservice. Because like as someone who's recovered, I feel like I live pretty much a normal life as normal people do, as my friends are, as my like relatives and other people I see. I pretty much live a very normal life. I'm not walking down the street thinking, oh, but I am an OCD sufferer, so therefore, like, like I'm this or that. Like that separation just does not exist in my life. Or I used to be someone who has OCD, so my capabilities are far different than another person. Like I don't feel that way. It's not a conscious thought that pops up in my mind at all. Why? Because in fact, because back when I was really suffering as well, because I had acceptance of the fact that I had OCD and other people didn't, and I have something that I suffer with that other people don't suffer from. That's exactly why today, that the narrative of like, oh, I used to be an OCD sufferer, or I have OCD somewhere in my genetics, that narrative does not really exist. I mean, I'm saying, of course it's factual, but in the sense like I'm not consciously thinking of that sentence that, oh, like this is that. And so like in that way, again, like I said, I feel pretty normal in my life, like a regular person. However, if I had this fear that oh, because I have OCD somewhere and somehow that makes me less capable than other people. How would I break that down? Well, number one, it's seeing that recovery is possible for me, and I can, even if I'm not able to be as normal as other people, I can maybe get close to it, at least. Number two, it's also accepting the fact that, okay, maybe I am someone who is going to be uniquely affected by something that other people are not. That's really important to accept, because if you're going to, in your mind, because this is what, even if you look at what a lot of OCD sufferers vent about online on OCD forums and stuff like that, what is a sentence that comes up quite a lot? I just want to feel normal. I just want to be normal. I just want to be like other people. That's a sentence that, like, a lot of them say quite a lot, right? And you can see that they're basically, what they're trying to do is they're mentally trying to somehow just switch over from like this way of thinking to like a normal way of thinking. They're trying to do some kind of like, flip in their mind of just like, oh, I just want to be normal. And so that constant fight and trying to force yourself to be normal is exactly what will, in fact, not make you feel normal. Because with OCD, we know with any kind of theme as well. For example, if someone is really wanting to feel love, that's exactly what they will not feel. They will not feel love because, or towards their partner, because that's what they really want. Someone who's really trying to feel physical symptoms wise, they really want to feel peace, they're not going to feel peace. In fact, the physical symptoms are going to hike up because that's the one feeling they want. So, you really wanting to feel normal and switch over to a normal mindset is exactly what's not going to happen if you're really trying to force it and trying to hammer it in your mind that no, 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 please be normal, please be normal. So, part of that acceptance curve is also accepting that, okay, yeah, maybe you're not a normal person. You are someone who has this kind of like disorder that majority of the population perhaps does not suffer from. You have a disorder that is like quite still misunderstood very frequently. It is a little bit of a unique niche thing in some ways. Again, OCD is not your, I don't know, chicken burger. It's like some very unique thing on the menu that just like doesn't exist everywhere in that way. So because if you're going to have absolute rejection of that potential reality, again, what will happen? You're not going to allow yourself the opportunity to go towards an adapting mindset. You're going to stay in a mindset of feeling like a victim and feeling like your life is somehow far more handicapped than another person's. Adaptation to whatever your circumstances are is so important. And when I really think about it, like, it's like, if I think about a life where I did not have OCD, I mean, that really doesn't make me feel like, oh, life is going to be bliss, or life would have been bliss if I did not have OCD. Because when I look around in life, and when I look around even with my peers and my friends and things like that, there's so many different things people are suffering with still so badly. People that I know very closely, they don't suffer with OCD, but what's happening with them? People are in bad relationships and marriages. There are people who are struggling to pay rent. There are people who are struggling to even like be able to afford good food for themselves on a regular basis in a month because they perhaps just don't have that kind of money. I personally know people like that. In fact, like, I've like even financially helped people out on that front as well. So like, people are dealing with like parents or loved ones who are going through like really strenuous kind of like diseases and illnesses. There are people who are like struggling with trying to have a kid. Like, these are like these are a lot of stresses. There are people who are coming to terms with their sexuality and they're struggling with that and what that means for them in the context of their life. So, good trigger for HOCD sufferers as well, this. But I mean, I personally know people who are struggling through those things. So, it's life is not like, as I say, dandy. Outside of having OCD, it's like pretty stressful. And if you're going to see, oh no, but OCD is far worse than, not being able to pay your rent. Yeah, it's not, because in that person's life, the maximum level of stress that they are going to feel in their life is not being able to pay for the roof over your head. And every month, every first date of the month is going they're going to feel like it's a race against time, or they're like just like really counting down the days of like, oh shit, like I just want to collect enough money till the very last day of the month so that on the first I can be able to pay my rent, and that's able to be that's like deducted from my account successfully, and I don't have to be evicted from my place. That's a huge thing. So it's like, if you're in your life, if your maximum level of stress is like OCD, for that person who doesn't know what OCD feels like, for them this is the maximum level of stress as well. In their framework, they are experiencing the max level of stress that they have not dealt with before. So when you like scale it across proportions, it feels the same perhaps as someone who suffers with OCD with whatever fear they have. Of course, like an OCD sufferer might be feeling it a bit more 24/7 than a regular person, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to experience that level of fear and panic and anxiety as like a non OCD person does. So, in many ways, your version of your life is also extremely skewed as well, because you're painting the non OCD life as something that's full of bliss, whereas the OCD life as something that is just like really, some like lower level of life in that sense. But it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you also have to realize that you're like, if you're someone who is struggling to have friends, relationships, a job, or whatever because of OCD, and this is not like to make anyone feel bad, but you have to also understand that that is part of your own doing as well. And this is not to blame you, but to, in fact, it's to help you understand that these are the very things that are kind of like in your control as well, because it's what has made your life be in that position that it is right now. It's a result of both your beliefs and the behaviors that you have been doing across many years that have led to this position, right? So these are the things that you yourself can also change to get your life to the point and get a version of life that you want for yourself. So that self accountability factor becomes the very defining factor and how you can absolutely turn your life around and change that for yourself. But a non OCD life is absolutely not bliss at all. You have to, and for me, like, and that's also why I'm not afraid of like setbacks or relapses at all. Because for me, it's not like, oh, it's an OCD problem. Like for me, like OCD is just as much of a life challenge as, again, like health or finances or family or relationships. It's literally in the same breath for me. It's not like, oh, these are regular life problems and this is an OCD problem. If I view it like that, again, I'm going to be constantly then doing myself a disservice and constantly thinking that, oh, I am uniquely challenged, or I used to be uniquely challenged in a way that other people aren't, so therefore my situation is worse than other people's. You see how that easily translates into that self victimization and just making yourself feel bad about yourself for no good reason. Like, that leads to absolutely zero productivity and zero change in life. You're going to stay then in that mindset of, oh, I'm worse than other people, right? Again, I also, like I said, I also do have acceptance of the fact that, let's say later on I do have in life a setback or relapse, even though I don't see that happening, but also the possibility is not completely zero. I have to be accepting of the possibility that even if it's 1%, it exists, right? So let's say even if that were to happen one day, one, it doesn't scare me, and number two, for me it's also not like, oh, because because I have because I have OCD and it might affect me later in my life, therefore my life is far worse than other people. Like, again, that notion, the reason that notion doesn't exist is because realistically I also see a lot of human beings who repeat the same old mistakes even sometimes 10 years later. The mistakes that they used to make when they were like younger, they make those exact same mistakes even when they're older as well. So people don't just have relapses and setbacks with illness, with like, disorders. They also have setbacks and relapses with habits, old bad habits, personalities, mindsets. They have setbacks with that all the time, literally all the time. Um, and you have to be able to view these things this way, because you're otherwise you're going to feel extremely cynical. And every single time that you're hanging out with friends and family, in your mind you're going to be like, oh, but like I'm not one of them, in that way. And again, like I very much acknowledge, even in doing the job I do, I work with OCD sufferers. And when I speak to people, everyone is talking about, oh, I work in finance, and I work in, I don't know, like recruitment, I work in crypto, I run my business that sells this service or that service. And I'm like, yeah, I work with OCD sufferers. Like, that's just like not your regular average job at all. Like, that's just not what people are doing around the world in that way. So, I work with OCD sufferers, which is a very unique thing. I've been an OCD sufferer, which again is not the norm or average in life. So, in many ways, I am also accepting of the fact that my life does stand out in some way. Maybe sometimes in a good way, and maybe sometimes not so in a good way, because I mean, my ability to have conversations with people around, like, I don't know, like crypto or the economy is just like very limited then, because I'm like, yeah, that's just not my field at all. Um, so I mean, I'm not, my life is not me striving to feel normal. And ironically enough, that's kind of like why it does feel normal. Because I'm not constantly thinking, I'm not normal, I'm not normal, I'm different, my life is different, my job is different, my disorder has been different. I mean, like, if I'm doing that, then again, then I will be, in fact, the intense urge and need to be normal would have been higher. But because I'm not like chasing that, therefore I don't even think about that. And therefore I kind of like feel just like a part of like other people in that way, ironically enough. So that's how it goes. Guys, think about these things. Really think about these things. Think about what are some mindset changes you need to make? Are you doing this to yourself? Are you making yourself out to be a victim? Are you like going on this like negative narrative of like, oh, because I have OCD, so my life is more horrible than other people's? I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe. Really think about that. Guys, have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.